mentioned you wrote the show exactly how you wanted to see it on TV.
Yes.
How did you find your Holden? And how involved were you in finding him?
I was very involved, and it was a very, very difficult search. Holden, when we first meet him, if you remember, he comes out of his coma and he's just very confused. And I think the audition, the sides were, it was a lot of emotion to play without speaking, and it's very difficult to find an actor who can convey so much with only a look. And Berkeley nailed it. Every little moment in the script, he just, you could see it all play out on his face, and you could see it all play out in his eyes. And I'm a big fan of scenes that don't have a lot of talking, and having someone who's capable of handling those types of scenes where you don't have to say a lot as a writer, and you just kind of sit back and the whole scene, the whole rainbow of emotions plays across an actor's face. It's just it's great to have that.
With him being in a coma for 12 years, was that something that you had early on, or did you bring that in?
No, that's something that I had early on. I'm always fascinated by stories where you take someone, turn their life upside down, and then see where they land. I keep mentioning the scene in Shawshank Redemption where Brooks has to return to a normal life after spending so many years in prison, and that type of, what type of life, what type of life do I live now? It's so emotionally rich, and it's such a fun place to play. So I knew I wanted him to go into a coma and then come back and not quite know where he fits into the world. And then the more I thought about comas and consciousness, it kind of allowed us to go into a more, sci-fi territory and explore just the nature of consciousness. And, when you're asleep in a coma, is your consciousness with you, or is it off somewhere else?
The first episode churns through so much plot, and there's lots of twists and turns.
Yeah.
Would you say that the show continues at that pace, or does it slow down a little bit as you go on and things get settled?
No, there are a lot of twists and turns throughout, but not in a plotty way. We're very, very careful to make sure this is, Holden's journey. It's a very emotional journey, and we didn't want to shortchange that emotion and the internal hardships that he has to go through just to serve his plot to zigzag around. But emotionally, we do zigzag, so it worked out. There are a lot of twists and turns, and hopefully the story goes in directions that you wouldn't quite expect it to.
It's a show about powers. Is there anything you want to avoid doing when it came to the powers?
I wanted to avoid making it a show about powers. I wanted the minute it becomes about the powers, you lose sight of who Holden is as a person. So at every step, I wanted to keep it about Holden and who he is and what he's going through in that moment. That happens to be complicated by the fact that he can melt bobbleheads or lift people into the air, and we always talk about these powers as almost consequences in a way, as hardships that get in the way of him trying to reacclimate and lead a normal life.
Introducing those powers, when you do that, it just seemed like there was care in how it was done, rather than just kind of throw them into it.
Yeah.
It was more deliberate rather than just haphazard.
Yeah, I think that's just because we wanted to take an extra amount of time to build up who Holden was as a character, and then once we kind of understand where he's coming from as a character, then we can kind of take it into a more fantastical point. Or a more fantastical area. But also, I'm a big fan of, Spielberg and these Amblin movies, and you watch a movie like E.T., and you watch these sequences, and they are so scene by scene. It's beautifully done. It's such there's such care in making you feel for, you know, these two characters, and it allows you, if you spend the time to focus on these, you know, as these characters, then it does let you then kind of have fun with them. Yeah, it was very intentional to make this sequence, to have it have, you know, a really slow, steady build-up. So then when it happens, it's almost like it happens in a big way, you know. A lot of it is in the tease. You know something's going to happen, and you just kind of tease it out as long as possible, and then it kind of explodes.
His powers are definitely connected to his emotions, and as he grows emotionally and becomes an adult,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
His powers come
Yes.
into fruition.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the overarching struggle, or is there a big bad in this season?
I can't say there's a big bad, because we like to play in the gray areas. It's not as simple as black and white. Yeah, it's we do have opposing forces, but we try to each give them a legitimate point of view. You know, and just keep them as that, opposing forces. There are definitely people that want to tear Holden away from him leading his normal life, and we'll learn more about their motives as we kind of go through the rest of the season. But I wouldn't call them bad necessarily. I would call them strong-willed. But yeah, his emotions are definitely tied to his powers. To also keep this, you know, even when you're dealing with his powers, even when you're kind of, you know, dipping a toe in the superhero pool, it still very much comes from a place of emotion.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you.